materia is that?
Initiate the action.
Target reassignment. Hostile.
Tactical retreat. Tactical retreat.
Warning. Target escaping. Engage pursuit mode.
Need backup here. This can't be happening. Hostile contact.
Withdrawal mode recommended. Please comply. Operation successful.
Ah, jubilation.
Hello everyone, this is Raptor88 Blue, and this is going to be another build video featuring the Elemetalist. My build uses the Scepter Dagger combo. I find it to be a good balance between ranged AoE and close quarters damage. And I basically call this my DPS Cantrip survivalist build. Until I think of a better name, that's basically what I call it. It's not an official title or anything. It's just a very descriptive name that I pretty much just thought of just now. I'm going to run through the powers real quickly. Right now, this is my character at level 80, since I'm in Radasum. And let's see, we have Flame Strike, Dragon's Tooth, Phoenix, Ring of Fire, Fire Grab. And if you want to see what any of these do, you can pause the video as I scroll the mouse over and it pops up the little description. Ice Shards, Shatterstone, Water Trident, Frost Aura, Cleansing Wave, Arc Lightning, Lightning Strike, Blinding Flash, Ride the Lightning, Updraft, Stone Shards, Rock Barrier, Dust Devil, Earthquake, Churning Earth. More importantly are going to be my utility skills, since those aren't dependent on the weapon combo. I use Ether Renewal, or Ether Renewal, however it's properly pronounced. It has pretty good healing, considering my healing power is pretty low. And it cures conditions with every pulse. It doesn't actually paralyze you, you can move while using it. But it does have a long duration. You can't use your main attack while doing it. However, I can still do attacks like Lightning Strike or Blinding Flash, even while healing with Ether Renewal. And combine that with the fact that I can still continue to move, and it doesn't really make that much of a debilitation. It's long duration, much of a debilitation. I have Mist Form. This is a Cantrip. It makes me invulnerable. Gives me a little bit of a speed boost. And as you can see it granted me some boons, but those have to do with the traits that I've selected. What I like about it is it's a very good means of getting away. It'll break stun, and I can't be hurt while in that form. Lightning Flash is another cantrip. Has a pretty good range. Instant teleportation. It does damage on sight to where I teleport to, not a lot. It breaks stun. And it will grant me the same boons that Mist Form grants me. The other cantrip is Cleansing Fire. Now I change this up every so often, but this is a pretty cool one. In COF, when enemies set me on fire, I can use this. It'll cure 3 conditions, break stun, and burn my foes for 1,149 damage. So I basically take the fire that they've set on me, and I set it on them. Of course, I think they have to be close to you in order for that to set them on fire. Regardless, it will cure 3 conditions, which is pretty darn awesome. I pretty much always have this one, unless I'm exploring the world, but in dungeons and most any other situation, I have Glyph of Elementals when I need someone to tank for me and I don't have any players to do it. I summon this big guy. As an Earth Elemental, he's pretty hard to kill, and he's pretty distracting, isn't he? He does a decent job at tanking for me, doesn't draw aggro as much as I'd like, but still, at the very least, he provides an extra person, I guess you could say, to do damage to my target. Of course, elementals aren't really smart. You have to target your enemy and attack them before your elementals will head towards them. And I find that if you get too far away from your enemy that the elemental is fighting, the elemental will break off and follow you. So, they're not the smartest thing, but does a pretty good job as a shield. The duration is short, though, so you gotta keep an eye on that. Occasionally, I change up this slot when I don't need a cleansing cantrip, because my heal also cures plenty of conditions as well. If I don't need this to cure conditions, I'll change it up for something like Glyph of Lesser Elementals. Basically, it allows me to summon a smaller, weaker elemental. When I have both of them summoned, they definitely make good rock shields for me. And their damage adds to mine on a target. So I could become quite the deadly force with them at my side, and not have to worry too much about taking damage, unless the enemy is really hell-bent on attacking me. Now keep in mind this is a PvE build, and a dungeon build. It isn't meant for PvP. I don't know how well it would do in PvP. Somebody can certainly try it if they'd like, but I have a completely different build that I use for PvP. I find that this does very well in dungeons, even in a dungeon as crazy as COF. That's Citadel of Flame, by the way, for those of you who do not know. What is it? The acronym. Now I'll go into... I've geared and slotted him for damage. So I'm using Zed's armor, which is basically has berserker stats of power, precision, and critical damage. It is an exotic set. I liked the way it looked, and I liked its stats. It can be purchased on the trade post. I have ruby orbs slotted in it for extra power, precision, and critical damage. And then I have a Peacemaker Scepter. I basically took the cultural Asura weapon and combined it with an exotic scepter with berserker stats. I wanted the Peacemaker look, but the exotic stats. Power, precision, critical damage, with a superior sigil of battle, which grants 3 stacks of might for 20 seconds when you swap to this weapon. Now, elementalists don't weapon swap, so what does that mean? Well, that means seconds. Every time I switch attunements, that counts as a weapon swap. Now, it won't continuously stack those stacks of might as I swap attunements, but if I change from, like, earth to fire, it'll give me the 3 stacks of might. If I soon after changed from fire to air while the stacks of might were still up, it wouldn't grant me another 3 stacks. It would just wait until they expire, and then when I swapped attunements again, it would grant me another 3 stacks. Since I swap attunements frequently during battle, I'm constantly having these 3 stacks of might up. Now, at level 80, a single stack of might gives you 35 power and 35 condition damage. 3 stacks adds up to be a total of 105 power and 105 condition damage. So almost at all times, I have a boost of 105 power and 105 condition damage. That is pretty darn good. In my dagger, which is a molten dagger I got from COF, turning in char carvings, power, precision, critical damage, same deal. It uses a superior sigil of perception, which gains me 10 precision each time you kill a foe. It stacks precision, and the stacks do not expire until you are killed. So, and when I say killed, I actually mean downed, KO. So, when you're in the state where you have to fight to survive, fight to rally, that is when your stacks will be pretty much deleted. So, as long as you stay on your feet, you will maintain these stacks, and they won't end. It can stack up to 25 stacks, and as you build precision, you build critical chance. Even without these stacks of precision, my critical chance is at 53%. That's pretty good. I'm doing everything I can to get that higher, but it isn't easy. I also have Ruby Berserker trinkets. I'm hoping to eventually upgrade these to exotic Ruby trinkets for even more power, precision, and critical damage, trying to squeeze as much as I can out of this build. And right now my critical damage is 94%, so 94% more critical damage than for a critical hit. My power is over 2,000, which actually isn't too bad, and that's not because I have a lot of traits, points, and fire, it's because of all the power I'm granted from the Berserker stats and the Berserker gear. My vitality and health is definitely not as high as it could be, and there's no bonus stats to emphasize it, so this build is a little bit squishy. I rely on the cantrips for survival, and there's even another one that's useful. Armor of Earth, which grants protection and stability for 6 seconds, and it breaks stun. So that makes it so I take 33% less damage, and I can't be knocked down, stunned, launched, sink, float, fear, or daze. I think sink or float is an underwater condition or control effect. And that will bring me to my traits. I have 10 in fire, 30 in air, 20 in earth, and 10 in water. Now, for fire, I wanted the 100 power. The condition duration is okay, but 10% actually isn't that much. Not when you have conditions that are lasting like 6 seconds. What's 10% of 6? Well, it's a fraction of a second longer. That's hardly anything. The 100 power is nice because it boosts my base damage. I have a 20% chance to cause burning whenever a foe attacks me in melee. That's pretty good. Cantrips grant you 3 stacks of might. So notice those might stacks I get when I use these. 3 stacks of might. And it actually seems to have a pretty long duration. I think that's 10 or 15 seconds. Every one of these cantrips will grant you these 3 stacks of might. Now I can't use them in a row to get like 9 stacks of might, I wish, but it doesn't work that way. Still, as discussed before, 3 stacks of might is quite the bonus. And that's why I wanted that. Now, I also have my sigil that allows me to swap attunements and grants me an additional 3 stacks of might. So if I swap attunements and use a cantrip, I think I get 6 stacks of might. Of course, the sigil only works during battle, so I can't test it right here. I'll try and test it in the demonstration at the end of the video, when I show everyone what this build can do in battle. Even if they don't stack for a total of 6 stacks of might, which would be insane, at the very least, anytime I use a cantrip or swap attunements, which I do both often, I'm getting 3 stacks of might, so I almost have a permanent 3 stacks of might up while I'm in battle. In air magic, deal 20% more damage to foes with less than 33% health. That's pretty good for helping to finish off bosses and junk groups. That's just an annoying secondary trait that I can't do anything about. Strike your target with a bolt of lightning when you attuning to air. Well, apparently that even if you don't have something targeted and you attune to air, a lightning will basically strike a random enemy next to you, and it can totally aggro something that you don't want aggroed onto you. It's annoying, but that's why I don't attune to air when I'm exploring the world that often. I attune before I start exploring. Deal 10% more damage while attuned to air. I spend a lot of my time attuned to air during battle. The attacks are fast, they recharge frequently, and there's even a ability in air, Updraft, which grants me swiftness and allows me to evade. As you can see, it's like another dodge roll. So I find being attuned to air very useful. Also, the arc lightning goes in 3 stages. It has a duration of 3 seconds. In that 3 seconds, I deal, on average, 3,000 damage. That's in COF, but I find it's about the same, even at level 80. Sometimes I deal less than that, sometimes I even deal up to 5,000 damage, but usually it's about 3,000 damage in 3 seconds with just the main air attack. That's pretty good. I haven't compared it to too many other builds, but considering in 6 seconds I can do 6,000 damage, 9 seconds I can do 9,000 damage. That's still maybe not equivalent to a warrior's 100 blades when he's equipped with full, he or she, with full berserker gear, but that's still a decent, reasonable amount of damage for just a regular base attack. Unfortunately, Elementalists don't really have anything that's equivalent to 100 blades. Where was I? Ah, air. All your air weapon skills recharge 20% faster, so that means all of these recharge 20% faster, meaning I can use Updraft 20% more often, Ride the Lightning 20% more often. I can blind my foes 20% more often with Blinding Flash, which I use frequently. It already has an 8-second recharge. Well, actually, that's after the 20% reduction in recharge time. And this is only 4 seconds now. So I'm using that often, and it deals a reasonably good chunk of damage, 887 damage. That's usually what I use in addition to my Arc Lightning, and I can use it without interrupting my Arc Lightning, which I think is pretty cool. So in addition to the 3,000 damage I do with Arc Lightning, I can strike my foe for an additional 887 damage. It's why I like the air attunement so much. Down in Earth, I decided to put a lot in Earth because it gives me a double whammy. It gives me 200 toughness for added survivability, and condition damage. It may not be as immediate as, like, power, but I find since the Elementalist lays down a lot of conditions all the time, having a high condition damage is pretty good. especially if I'm in a situation where I don't get much of an opportunity to hit the enemy that often. I can just strike them with a few condition-causing abilities, and then run away or run around, and allow the condition to take effect. I deal 5% more damage to bleeding foes. The ability's called Salt Stone, so that actually sounds pretty painful. But, that's basically the best out of these adept traits. Not going to really find much better than that when it comes to dealing damage. And then all your earth weapon skills recharge 20% faster. That brings me to earth. Dust Devil is my favorite blinding attack. It'll blind an enemy for 11 seconds. Now, it's only a single stack of blindness, so if the enemy gets hit by it, it'll make only one of their attacks miss. But for the whole 11 seconds, even if the enemy has a slow attack rate, they're liable to at least throw out one attack within that duration, and it will miss. They won't hit anything with it. So I find it really useful. Also, because of the way Dust Devil works, anybody who gets hit by that will be blinded. So it's pretty darn awesome. Earthquake and Churning Earth had slow recharge times, so that's why I wanted that trait, so that they recharge quicker. Earthquake is very useful if I'm surrounded by enemies. It does damage to them and knocks them off their feet, often allowing me to do Churning Earth. By the time they get up, I'm already over halfway through my Churning Earth duration, and this does ridiculous damage. Its initial damage is 2,403 and it does 8 stacks of bleeding for 3,424 damage in 8 seconds. Plus, it cripples them, 4 stacks of cripple. So, this is a devastating killer attack. Also within Earth, I have Rock Barrier, which it's useful to have this Rock Barrier. It gives me additional armor. Of course, it doesn't specify how much it enhances my armor, but whatever. Hurl, I don't usually bother using that because it doesn't do a lot of damage. And then Stone Shards lays down bleeding. So the condition damage that I mentioned before, I'm constantly laying down bleeding on the enemy with Stone Shards. And because I do 5% extra damage to bleeding foes, I'm always doing 5% extra damage while the enemy's bleeding. I can actually stack bleeding pretty high with Stone Shards. Given enough time, I can get as high as 20 stacks, and then switch to like Air Attunement and start nailing them. So I'll be dealing 5% more damage while they're bleeding. Back to my traits. Now water, having the added healing power and vitality, is good. Healing power is a little bit of a pain in the butt, because even with 100, my healing power is still ridiculously low. I mean, 100 healing power for plus 100 points in it? I now understand the gripe about healing power. However, I don't have a lot of health, so I don't need a lot of massive heals. Ether Renewal does over 5,000 healing. That's pretty good. I also regenerate health while attuned to water, so when I'm in dire need of health, I attune to water, gain, there it is, Soothing Mist, which regenerates health. I have Cleansing Wave, which is another heal, and then Water Trident, which I can cheaply cast on myself as another heal. So I often switch to Water Attunement to give myself extra heal. Regeneration, 2 extra heals, very useful. I can Frost Aura myself to chill foes who try and attack. And if I find that me and my team aren't doing enough damage to a boss, I'll use Shatterstone. It has a mere 2-second recharge, and it's an AoE vulnerability. It plants 4 stacks of vulnerability. Every stack of vulnerability gives 1 percentile of extra additional incoming damage. to the foes that it hits. I usually plant it right over the boss, or in front of a junk group, in the middle of a junk group of enemies. And it lays down vulnerability, and because it has such a quick recharge rate, I can do that. And that. And basically just keep spamming it and building those stacks of vulnerability. Eventually gaining up to 25 stacks of vulnerability unless the enemies can cure conditions. And that's would be a total of 25% more damage that would be done to them by my attacks and my allies' attacks. Now, in water, I use Soothing Disruption. Cantrips grant you regeneration and vigor, and that brings me back to where we are. I already have in the fire trait that cantrips grant me 3 stacks of might. Now, regeneration and vigor. So every time I use these, I gain regeneration. And I gain regeneration to water. I have 2 healing abilities, and then I have this healing ability. So I'm able to heal myself quite frequently, keep myself regenerated. The cantrips are just excellent skills when it comes to helping you survive. I have quite a bit of toughness because of my 20 points in earth magic, decent vitality because of my 10 points in water magic. So there's a lot of survivability in this build, and yet I haven't really compromised damage capacity too much because I still do ridiculous amounts of damage, especially since every time I use cantrips and swap attunements, I'm granted stacks of might. And of course, I build precision every time I kill a foe with my other sigil, so I'm constantly building critical chance. And my base critical chance is 53%, so at least 1 in every 2 attacks is a critical hit. I have a ridiculously high critical damage. So this build is full of damage, dealing, and survivability. And I think that about covers it. There were a few other traits that I wish I could have had with this build, but I guess you can't have it all. And now it's time to go somewhere and demonstrate this build in action. I will show you how much damage it can actually do. Alright, welcome back. We are here in South Sun Cove, one of my favorite places to demonstrate, because I can be level 80 here. Or would be another good place. Unfortunately, I don't have it unlocked with this character yet. Or unfogged, whatever you want to call it. As you can see, I haven't even quite done my story to its... I haven't finished my story, or even come close. Now, South Sun Cove is a good spot to demonstrate how much damage I can do to a single tough target. These reef drakes are ridiculous. They have a lot of health, they do ridiculous amounts of damage, can lay down horrible conditions and confusion. If given the chance, these things can kill me in less than 5 seconds. Well, at least down me in less than 5 seconds, and then finish me off soon after. So I will demonstrate how to deal with enemies like this with this build. Here's a little trick I learned. Most people with Elementalists probably know this, but for those of you that don't know, churning earth takes a long time to activate, and if I tried running up to the drake and using it on him, he'd kill me or down me before I could have a chance to complete it. At the very least, he'd interrupt me. So I'm going to activate it. I'm going to activate it here. And if it doesn't, he managed to lay down confusion on me. 6 stacks of might right here. 6 stacks. That's crazy. If 3 stacks is 105 power and 105 condition damage, then 6 stacks is double that, which would be a total of 210 power and 210 condition damage, because I used cantrips and I swapped attunements. Plus, from using cantrips, I get regeneration and vigor. And vigor increases the rate at which your endurance regenerates, which would allow you to do more dodge rolls more frequently, which also helps at getting away. So, I have ridiculous evasion potential with this build, and ridiculous damage potential. Well, I don't know if the damage potential is ridiculous, but it's pretty high, considering it's a high survivability build. I'll demonstrate another trick, this time without using the churning earth trick. Let's say you don't get the opportunity to use that churning earth. To do any damage to me. Now, you're not always going to go up against enemies who prefer close quarters, like these drakes. So I'm going to demonstrate how to fight some young Karka, which do have ranged ability. We're back, and right over here we have young Karka. Also powerful enemies, lots of health, ranged abilities, and can lay down conditions on you. Not as annoying as the reef drakes. That wasn't definitely my best takedown, but as you can see, even when I make mistakes, this build gives you enough leeway and flexibility to survive those mistakes. That young Karka still didn't stand much of a chance. He brought my health down about halfway, but I was able to pull back, cure my conditions, and heal. Now, my Earth Elemental isn't regenerated, and I'm not going to use the Churning Earth. This is a whole nother scenario. Definitely took some damage in that fight, but I didn't even need to use my Churning Earth trick, nor my Earth Elemental. I took him down pretty quick, and was able to endure plenty of damage. It's, with the Elementalist, pretty much with any build, it's all about learning the proper skill combinations, and attack combinations. Once you got those down, you can survive reasonably well. Before I go on to the next demonstration, which is nearby, I wanted to make a shout out to my friend. His YouTube name is Crotch Blaster. I highly recommend checking out his channel. He has a lot of builds up on almost pretty much every profession in the game. He has an extremely good Elementalist build that he recently made and put out. Definitely rivals mine, maybe even a little bit more streamlined. Also good in survivability and high DPS, proven to survive and do well in COF. So you should definitely check it out if you're looking for an alternative Elementalist build. And maybe mine doesn't completely suit your playstyle, I don't know. But his build is actually quite different from mine, and yet still very effective. Now, on to the next demonstration. Alright, welcome back. This is going to be my final demonstration. I like to make my builds with a lot of utility options. And in this case, I've switched utility skills here to help accommodate a battle with a single powerful opponent. In this case, it's going to be a veteran young Karka. If no other young Karkas interfere, it'll be a well, not necessarily one-on-one fight, but me versus him, basically. And I'll show you how you can succeed against a single powerful enemy that can probably... Actually, he has killed me in like 5 seconds. This isn't going to be easy, but it's all about timing. First of all, we're gonna summon both Okay, that didn't go exactly as planned. Yeah, go away, dude. I took down the veteran Karka and another Karka that interfered. I figured I'd be pretty much fucked if another Karka interfered, but I wasn't. I managed to pull off a victory just barely. I did get downed, which is usually something I try and completely avoid, but I was able to kill him, rally, and then finish off the other one. But had that other one not interfered, that would have been totally a victory without me having been downed at all. This is the second video where my demonstrations didn't really go according to plan, but hey, it still showed the effectiveness of the build. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time.